The power of positive thinking. Train your mind to see opportunity. Most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because their mind is noisy. Too many thoughts, too many doubts, too many voices pulling them in different directions. And slowly, without noticing, confusion becomes normal. You wake up tired. Decisions feel heavy. Simple choices feel complicated, and you start questioning yourself more than the situation. But what if the problem was never your intelligence? What if the problem was never your potential? What if the problem was simply that no one ever taught you how to think clearly? Pause for a moment. When was the last time you felt truly calm about a decision? When was the last time your mind felt quiet, focused, certain? If it feels rare, this audiobook is for you. Welcome to How to Think Clearly. Make better decisions, build a better life. In this audiobook, we are not chasing motivation, we are not offering shortcuts, and we are not promising easy answers. Instead, we are building something far more powerful. Clarity. The kind of clarity that allows you to see through noise. The kind of clarity that helps you act without hesitation. The kind of clarity that turns confusion into direction. Because clarity is not talent. It is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. Over the next chapters, you will learn how to slow your thinking without losing momentum, how to separate emotion from decision, how to stop overthinking and start choosing with confidence, how to protect your mind in a world designed to distract you. You will discover why smart people still make bad decisions, and how clear thinkers avoid the traps that ruin progress. This is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming steady, calm under pressure, focused in chaos, certain even when the outcome is unknown. Here's the truth most people never hear. A clear mind doesn't guarantee success, but an unclear mind guarantees struggle. And the moment you learn to think clearly, your entire life begins to feel lighter. Because decisions stop draining you, problems stop overwhelming you, and action becomes natural again. So take a breath. Let the noise fade. This audiobook is not something you listen to once. It's something you step into. And by the end, you won't just think more clearly, you'll trust yourself again. And that changes everything. Chapter 1. The moment you realize your mind is powerful. You don't lose your life all at once. You lose it slowly, thought by thought, reaction by reaction, belief by belief. Most people don't fail because they aren't talented. They fail because they never learned how to think on purpose. Right now, pause for a moment. Think about the last decision you made, the last emotional reaction you had, the last time you felt overwhelmed, anxious, angry, or uncertain. Where did it start? It didn't start in the world. It started in your mind. And that is why this audiobook exists. Welcome to How to Think Clearly, a journey into better decisions, emotional control, mental clarity, and inner power. This is not about becoming perfect. This is about becoming aware, because the truth is simple, but uncomfortable. Your life is not controlled by circumstances. Your life is controlled by how you interpret circumstances. Most people never question their thinking. They assume every thought is true, every fear is valid, every emotion is justified. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if your mind, left untrained, is the very thing holding you back? Think about it. Two people face the same problem. One panics, one adapts, one collapses, one grows, one feels overwhelmed, one feels challenged. Same situation, different thinking, and different thinking produces different lives. Clear thinking is not a talent, it is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned. But first, you must understand something most people never do. Your mind is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you safe. That means it exaggerates danger. It clings to past pain. It repeats old stories. It reacts faster than it reasons. If you don't train it, your mind will default to fear, overthinking, and emotional shortcuts. That's why so many people feel stuck. They aren't stuck in life. They're stuck in patterns of thought. Patterns that feel normal, patterns that feel familiar, patterns that feel automatic. But automatic does not mean accurate. And this audiobook is about breaking that automation. Because the moment you learn how to slow your thinking, you start seeing options you never noticed before. When you think clearly, you stop reacting. You start responding. You stop being dragged by emotion. You start choosing direction. You stop living inside noise. You start living inside intention. Clarity changes everything. But let's be honest, clear thinking is rare. Not because it's complicated, but because it requires discipline. It requires pausing when you want to react, questioning when you want to assume, observing when you want to judge. Most people don't do that. They live on mental autopilot. They wake up already overwhelmed. They scroll before they think. They absorb opinions before forming their own. They make decisions emotionally and justify them logically later. And then they wonder why life feels chaotic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A cluttered mind creates a cluttered life. If your thinking is rushed, your decisions will be rushed. If your thinking is emotional, your choices will be unstable. If your thinking is unclear, your direction will feel foggy. You cannot outwork bad thinking. You cannot out-hustle confusion. You cannot outrun a mind that sabotages itself. This audiobook is not about motivation. It is about mental precision, about slowing down in a fast world, about seeing clearly in noisy environments, about making decisions that your future self thanks you for. And it begins with awareness. Right now, notice your thoughts, not what they're about, but how they behave. Do they jump? Do they rush to conclusions? Do they replay the past? Do they catastrophize the future? That is not you. That is your untrained mind doing what it has always done. And the moment you understand that, you gain distance. And distance creates control. Control is not force. Control is clarity. You don't need to think more. You need to think better. And better thinking starts with one powerful shift. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. Once you see that, everything changes. Because what you observe, you can question. What you question, you can refine. What you refine, you can master. This audiobook will teach you how to slow your thinking without losing speed, separate facts from emotions, make decisions without regret, reduce overthinking, build inner calm, and choose clarity over chaos. But first, you must understand the cost of unclear thinking, because unclear thinking doesn't just confuse you. It drains your energy. It steals your confidence. It makes simple decisions feel heavy. It turns small problems into emotional storms. And the worst part? Most people blame life, when the real issue is how they think about life. In the next chapter, we're going to expose the invisible mental traps that keep people stuck. The traps you don't notice because they feel normal. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. That's when real clarity begins. Chapter 2. The invisible traps that hijack your thinking. Most people believe their thoughts are logical. They're not. They're conditioned. Your mind is not a neutral observer. It is a pattern recognition machine shaped by past experiences, fears, habits, and emotional shortcuts. That's why two people can look at the same situation and see completely different realities, because reality is filtered, and those filters decide your life. Let's talk about the traps, not the obvious ones, the invisible ones, the ones that feel like common sense, the ones that sound reasonable, the ones that whisper instead of shout. The first trap is speed. Modern life trains you to think fast, to react instantly, to respond immediately, to decide before you reflect. Speed feels productive, but speed without clarity is chaos. Fast thinking feels efficient until you notice the consequences. You say things you don't mean. You choose paths you later regret. You misread situations. You escalate problems that didn't need escalation. Fast thinking is emotional thinking, and emotional thinking is not wrong. It's just incomplete. It skips steps. It jumps from stimulus to reaction without passing through understanding. Clear thinkers slow down on purpose, not because they're unsure, but because they know that the first thought is rarely the best one. Here's the second trap. Assumptions. Your mind loves shortcuts. It fills in gaps with guesses. It labels people quickly. It predicts outcomes without evidence. You assume intentions. You assume outcomes. You assume failure before trying. And assumptions feel safe because they reduce uncertainty, but they also reduce truth. When you assume, you stop seeing. When you stop seeing, you stop learning. Clear thinking begins when you replace assumptions with questions, not questions for others, questions for yourself. What evidence do I actually have? What else could be true? What am I missing? Those questions create space, and space is where clarity lives. The third trap is emotional reasoning. This one is subtle. You feel something, and your mind treats the feeling as fact. I feel anxious, so something must be wrong. I feel offended, so they must be attacking me. I feel afraid, so this must be dangerous. But feelings are signals, not conclusions. They are information, not verdicts. Emotional reasoning turns temporary states into permanent stories, and stories, once believed, shape identity. You don't just feel overwhelmed. You start believing you are overwhelmed. You don't just feel insecure. You start believing you are insecure. Clear thinkers separate emotion from identity. They allow feelings, without letting feelings define reality. The fourth trap is confirmation bias. Your mind loves being right, so it looks for evidence that supports what it already believes and ignores everything else. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll notice every betrayal. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll notice every setback. If you believe success is hard, you'll notice every obstacle. And slowly, silently, your beliefs build proof, not because they're true, but because your attention feeds them. Attention is power. What you focus on grows. Clear thinking requires intellectual honesty, the courage to challenge your own beliefs, not to destroy them, but to refine them. The fifth trap is catastrophizing. This is where small problems become mental disasters. A delay becomes a failure. A mistake becomes an identity flaw. A setback becomes the end. Your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario, not because it's likely, but because it's emotionally vivid. Fear exaggerates. Clear thinkers don't ignore risks. They calibrate them. They ask, how likely is this really? What's the realistic outcome? What would I do if the worst happened? Catastrophizing loses its power when you bring it into the light. The sixth trap is mental noise. Endless information, constant input, opinions everywhere. Your mind becomes crowded. And when your mind is crowded, clarity disappears. You can't hear your own thinking. You confuse urgency with importance, activity with progress, reaction with intention. Clear thinkers protect their mental environment. They limit noise. They choose input carefully. They create space for silence. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is processing, and processing is how understanding forms. Here's the hardest truth. Most people don't struggle with thinking because they lack intelligence. They struggle because they never learned mental discipline. They let thoughts run unchecked. They let emotions lead decisions. They let external noise dictate internal states. But clarity is trainable, and the first step is awareness. Right now, as you listen, notice which traps resonate. Where do you rush? Where do you assume? Where do emotions hijack logic? Where does fear exaggerate? This isn't about judgment. It's about responsibility. Because once you see these traps, you can step around them. And when you step around them consistently, your entire life trajectory shifts. In the next chapter, we'll talk about slowing your thinking without losing momentum, how to pause without hesitation, how to reflect without procrastinating, how to think clearly, even under pressure. Because clarity isn't passive, it's deliberate, and it's about to become your greatest advantage. Chapter 3. Slow Thinking. The secret weapon of clear minds. Speed is impressive. Clarity is unstoppable. Most people confuse the two. They believe that thinking fast makes them sharp, that quick answers equal intelligence. That hesitation is weakness. But the truth is this: the most powerful minds are not fast by accident. They are slow on purpose. Slow thinking is not about being passive. It's not about overanalyzing. And it's definitely not about freezing. Slow thinking is controlled thinking. It's the ability to pause between stimulus and response. And in that pause, your entire life changes. Because that pause is where choice lives. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens, they react. A comment triggers emotion. A delay triggers frustration. A mistake triggers self-criticism. No space, no buffer, no control. Clear thinkers build a buffer. They don't eliminate emotion. They don't suppress feeling. They delay reaction long enough to choose their response. That delay is power. Here's what slow thinking actually looks like in real life. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. Someone says something sharp, and instead of firing back, you breathe once. One breath. That breath is not weakness. That breath is you reclaiming control. Because the fastest reaction is rarely the smartest one. Slow thinking allows you to ask a better question. What matters most right now? Not what feels loud, not what feels urgent, but what actually matters. Urgency screams, importance whispers, and only a calm mind can hear whispers. Slow thinking is also about sequencing. Fast thinkers jump to conclusions. Slow thinkers move step by step. They separate facts from interpretations. They distinguish what happened from what it means. They notice when emotion colors perception. For example, a project fails. Fast thinking says, "I'm bad at this, I always mess things up." Slow thinking says, what specifically failed? What worked? What didn't? What's adjustable? One creates identity damage. The other creates improvement. Slow thinking protects your self-image, and your self-image determines your behavior. Another key element of slow thinking is delayed certainty. Most people rush to certainty because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But certainty too early is dangerous. It locks you into positions that might be wrong. It blinds you to new information. It creates rigidity. Clear thinkers are comfortable saying, "I don't know yet," not as weakness, but as honesty. They let understanding mature. They allow the full picture to form before committing to conclusions. This is how they make fewer mistakes, not because they're perfect, but because they're patient. Now let's talk about pressure. Because anyone can think clearly when life is calm, the real test is chaos. Deadlines, conflict, high stakes, emotional tension. This is where slow thinking becomes a superpower. Under pressure, your nervous system wants speed, fight, flight, defend, attack. Slow thinking interrupts that loop. It doesn't deny urgency. It reframes it. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do right now?" clear thinkers ask, "What's the smartest move right now?" Those questions sound similar. They're not. One is reactive, the other is strategic. Slow thinking also reduces regret. Most regrets come from rushed decisions, words spoken too fast, choices made too early, actions taken without foresight. Slowing down doesn't remove risk, it removes unnecessary risk. Here's a simple practice you can start using today. Before responding, pause for 3 seconds. That's it, 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, ask yourself one question. What outcome do I want? Not, how do I win? Not, how do I prove a point? But, what outcome actually serves me long term? That question changes everything. It shifts you from ego to intention, from reaction to direction. Another practice. Name the emotion, don't obey it. Instead of saying, "I'm angry, so I'll act," say, "I'm feeling anger." That tiny shift creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice creates power. Slow thinking also means thinking less, not more. Overthinking is not slow thinking. Overthinking is chaotic thinking pretending to be deep. Clear thinkers simplify. They strip problems down to essentials. They remove excess mental noise. They ask, what's the core issue? What's within my control? What's irrelevant? Clarity is subtraction. And the more you subtract, the sharper your thinking becomes. Now here's something most people miss. Slow thinking doesn't make you slower in life. It makes you faster where it counts. Because you waste less energy fixing mistakes, less time repairing damage, less effort undoing impulsive decisions. You move forward cleanly, deliberately, with direction. In the next chapter, we'll talk about emotional clarity, how to feel deeply without being controlled by feelings, how to stay calm when others panic, how to maintain clarity when emotions run high. Because mastering your thoughts also means mastering your emotional state. And once you do, nothing shakes you the same way again. Chapter 4. Emotional clarity. Feel everything. Control nothing but your response. You don't lose clarity because you feel too much. You lose clarity because you let feelings drive the wheel. Emotions are not the enemy. Uncontrolled emotions are. Most people believe the goal is to become calm all the time. That's unrealistic. The real goal is something far more powerful: to feel deeply without being hijacked. Because emotions are information. They tell you something matters. They signal values. They highlight boundaries. But information is not instruction. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you should act on it. This is where emotional clarity begins. Clear thinkers don't suppress emotion. They observe it. They notice what's happening inside without immediately reacting outside. Anger shows up. They notice it. Fear rises. They acknowledge it. Disappointment hits. They let it pass through without turning it into identity. Because the moment you say, "I am angry," you become smaller. But when you say, "I'm experiencing anger," you regain space. That space is control. Emotional clarity is built on separation, separating who you are from what you feel. Most people collapse the two. They feel anxious. "I'm weak." They feel sad. "Something's wrong with me." They feel frustrated. "I can't handle this." Clear thinkers know better. They understand this truth. Feelings are temporary. Identity is not. The problem is not the emotion. The problem is the story you attach to it. Here's how emotional hijacking actually works. Something triggers you. Your brain searches for meaning. It grabs the fastest story available, usually an old one. "I'm not enough." "I always fail." "People can't be trusted." "This never works out." That story fuels the emotion. The emotion reinforces the story. Loop complete. Clarity gone. Emotional clarity breaks the loop. It interrupts the story. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel this way?" clear thinkers ask, "What is this emotion trying to protect?" Anger often protects boundaries. Fear protects safety. Sadness protects attachment. When you understand the function, you don't need to obey the feeling. You can respond intelligently. This is especially powerful in conflict. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or disrespects you, your emotions flare. The instinct is to defend. But emotional clarity whispers something smarter. Respond, don't react. Reacting gives away power. Responding keeps it. A reaction is automatic. A response is chosen. Clear thinkers slow the moment down. They don't rush to prove. They don't rush to win. They don't rush to dominate. They aim to understand first. Not because they're passive, but because understanding gives leverage. Another key to emotional clarity is predictability. Most emotional chaos comes from surprises. Unexpected outcomes, unplanned conversations, unmet expectations. Clear thinkers reduce emotional volatility by managing expectations. They assume less. They clarify more. They don't expect people to read their mind. They don't expect life to be fair. They don't expect perfect timing. They prepare mentally for friction. And preparation breeds calm. Emotional clarity also requires energy awareness. When you're exhausted, hungry, overstimulated, or overwhelmed, your emotional regulation drops. Clear thinkers protect their energy like a resource. They rest strategically. They limit unnecessary noise. They create mental space. Because a tired mind cannot think clearly, no matter how smart you are. Here's a powerful daily practice. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what emotion showed up the most today? What triggered it? How did I respond? How would I respond next time with clarity? No judgment, no shame, just awareness. Awareness turns chaos into data, and data turns growth into strategy. One more thing most people misunderstand. Emotional clarity does not mean being unbothered. It means being selectively bothered. You choose what deserves your emotional energy. You stop reacting to everything. You stop carrying weight that isn't yours. You stop letting other people's moods dictate your internal state. That's not coldness, that's maturity. In the next chapter, we'll talk about decision clarity. How to stop second-guessing yourself. How to make decisions you don't regret. How to trust your thinking, even under pressure. Because clarity without action is useless, and the clearest minds know how to decide and move forward without looking back. Chapter 5. Decision Clarity. How to stop doubting and start moving forward. Most people don't fail because they make bad decisions. They fail because they don't decide at all. They stall. They hesitate. They wait for certainty that never comes. And while they're waiting, life moves on without them. Decision clarity is not about always being right. It's about being decisive without being reckless. Clear thinkers understand something most people don't. There is no perfect decision. There is only a decision you commit to. Indecision feels safe, but it quietly drains your confidence. Every time you delay a decision, your mind learns one lesson. I don't trust myself. Over time, that belief becomes permanent. Clear thinkers reverse this pattern. They decide faster, not because they rush, but because they simplify. Here's the truth about decision-making. Most decisions are reversible. You can change direction, you can adjust strategy, you can recover. But overthinking convinces you that every choice is final. That one wrong move will ruin everything. That's a lie. Clarity begins when you stop treating every decision like a life sentence. Instead, ask a better question. What is the next reasonable step? Not the perfect step, not the guaranteed step, the next reasonable one. Clear thinkers operate on progressive clarity. They don't need the entire roadmap. They need the next mile. Once that step is taken, new information appears. New clarity emerges. Momentum replaces doubt. Another major cause of indecision is fear of regret. People imagine future pain and let it paralyze the present. What if I choose wrong? What if I waste time? What if I fail? Clear thinkers flip the frame. They ask, what will I regret more? Trying and learning, or staying stuck? Because stagnation creates a deeper regret than failure ever will. Failure teaches. Stagnation erodes identity. Decision clarity also depends on values. When you don't know what you stand for, every choice feels heavy. Clear thinkers define their core principles. They know what matters. So when a decision appears, they ask, does this align with who I want to become? If yes, move. If no, decline. No endless analysis required. Another powerful rule clear thinkers use. Don't decide when emotionally flooded. Strong emotions distort judgment. Anger narrows perspective. Fear exaggerates risk. Excitement hides consequences. Clarity requires neutrality. When emotions are high, pause. Not forever. Just long enough to regain center. Then decide from steadiness, not impulse. Clear thinkers also limit options. More options don't create freedom. They create paralysis. When faced with too many choices, they narrow it down to 2 or 3. Then they compare based on long-term impact, not short-term comfort. Short-term comfort creates long-term pain. Long-term alignment creates short-term discomfort, but lasting peace. Another overlooked principle. Decisions shape identity. Every choice is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. When you consistently choose courage, you become courageous. When you consistently choose avoidance, you become hesitant. Clear thinkers don't ask, what's easiest? They ask, what kind of person does this choice turn me into? And then they act accordingly. Here's a simple decision framework you can use immediately. Ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What's the worst realistic outcome? 2. Can I recover from it? 3. What will I learn either way? If you can recover and you can learn, the decision is safe enough to make. Confidence doesn't come before decisions. It comes from making them. Each decision strengthens the muscle. Each commitment builds trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of clarity. In the next chapter, we'll go even deeper. We'll talk about mental noise, the constant thoughts, distractions, and inner chatter that steal clarity before you even realize it. You'll learn how to quiet the mind so your best thinking finally has space to emerge. If this audiobook helped you think differently, take a moment to reflect on what resonated most. And if you want a sharpening your mind, tell us in the comments what topic you want next. Because clarity is not a destination, it's a way of living. And now, you have the tools to live it.